There's a spiritual war that acts through us, with occult forces influencing us and humanity at large, and it is intensifying. In this video, I give you an overview of some of the main aspects of how these entities, which have been given different names throughout the ages, operate. We are transducers of hidden forces, while the ego personality that is only focused externally lives under the illusion of freedom and independence. We are subjected to the suggestions of the occult hostile forces of the lower astral world, but we also receive insights, creative and inspirational impulses from spirit and divine forces. We all receive a mixture of these impressions and thoughts from the whole range of the lower to the higher realm, depending on many factors. As long as we live on the surface of the socially and culturally conditioned false ego personality, which is also the result of unconscious trauma and childhood wounds, the majority of this will be unconscious and mechanically, living under the illusion of free will, while we are guided or manipulated by hidden forces outside our five-sensory perception. During this intensifying spiritual war, it is important to understand how the deceiving forces, some even demonic azuric entities, operate and use, abuse, and manipulate humanity from non-physical realms. I've written and spoken about this topic for over 2 decades in various articles, videos, and webinars on my website. I've had my own intense experiences with these beings and worked with many people over the years dealing with entity interferences and attachments. The first key point to understand is that humanity is not on top of the food chain. Malevolent entities feed off of specific emotions and frequencies, predominantly reactive emotional turmoil that we suppress without processing, which is also an aspect of spiritual bypassing, or we project it externally, such as violence, anger, hate, envy, jealousy, lust, and sexual energy of the lower nature, fear, anxiety, shadow projection, self-importance, feeling better than others, as well as self-pity, feeling less than others, victim, blame consciousness, psychological splitting, to name a few. These occult forces also tempt humans of greed, power, and sex, working through them, implanting thoughts, suggestions, false spiritual and religious ideologies and beliefs, such as the religious savior program, and desires that are not their own, but humans mistake them as their own. These negative forces can also appear as positive beings in highly deceptive ways, appealing to the belief system of the person they aim to target, that are hardly distinguishable unless you have occult knowledge, a strong psychic discernment, and a high level of being where you can see the unseen and notice the ego temptations and weaknesses they target within you. But the most important question to ask is, how do we open ourselves up to their influence, even unconsciously? They need an entry point to come in. Here are the most common entry points: unconscious blind spots, trauma, childhood wounding, unintegrated shadow aspects, giving into the temptations of the lower nature, pride, arrogance, and so forth, all serve as entry points for other forces to come in through the cracks of your unintegrated being. Entry points can be created via strong pharmaceutical drugs, like psychiatric drugs, vaccines, or illegal drugs. Fentanyl, heroin, and amphetamines open doorways to demonic entities. Many people don't want to hear that and may deny it, but entry points can also be created via alcohol and so-called medicine plants and psychedelics, like cannabis, ayahuasca, psilocybin mushrooms, LSD, DMT, and others. It's not black and white. I've experimented with all of the above. However, notice how psychedelics and cannabis are being popularized, promoted, and romanticized as if there are no adverse effects at all. Strong pharmaceutical drugs, illegal drugs, and high doses of cannabis and medicine plants can rupture the aura and energy body and have the potential to dislodge the soul from the body, getting out of body, so something else can quickly come in and attach. Entry points giving access to hostile forces can be made via trap of agreements when engaging in left-hand path or black magic or sex magic practices. Many New Age and popular pop spiritual and self-help teachings are black magic practices in disguise. They are based on believing to be a god or goddess, worship of ego and egoic will, and wanting to become God, feeling entitled to any desire without discernment. Many so-called manifestation rituals can create these agreements in exchange for a manifested desire or more power, knowingly or unknowingly. It's the classical Faustian pact with the devil, selling one's soul for power, fame, and riches. These agreements can also have been made in the past life and carry over the present life. There are more types of entry points, which I tell you more about at the end of this video. However, the most important question is, how can we protect ourselves from the occult hostile forces. Very important to understand. As long as you're grounded in your true self and essence and are soul embodied, they cannot touch you. They cannot touch your true self and essence. They can only tag into what is already there as part of your unconscious and false self. You can try to protect yourself with crystals, gemstones, sage, visualizations, affirmation, and so on, but all of that is overrated, very limited, temporary at best, and won't help you with the strong entities. The best protection is ongoing psycho-spiritual inner work, which includes trauma work, shadow work, embodiment practices, spiritual work with sincere aspiration to the divine. To bring forth the true self and close off any entry points. Be careful with any substances or drugs you may use, and watch for your weaknesses and temptations of your ego and the lower nature. Everyone has them. Most entity removal modalities are useless and also very questionable unless the entry point is closed and healed, which is your responsibility and your work to do. No one can do it for you. Ultimately, it's about engaging in the grain work to anchor the soul firmly in your being and make it the master instead of your conditioned ego personality running the show, which these forces can easily manipulate. From an esoteric perspective, and in light of the evolution of consciousness, these occult hostile forces serve a teaching function. So be very careful of the victim blame trap. When you blame entities or these forces for your issues and victimize yourself, it gives them even more power while you disempower yourself. There are still many misperceptions and misconceptions about this topic of all topics, as it has become more popular over the years. As the mother, Mira Alfaza, said, attacks from adverse forces are inevitable. You have to take them as tests on your way and go courageously through the ordeal. The struggle may be hard, but when you come out of it, you've gained something. You've advanced a step. There's even a necessity for the existence of the hostile forces. They make your determination stronger, your aspiration clearer. It is true, however, that they exist because you gave them a reason to exist. So long as there's something in you that answers to them, which are your wounds, trauma, shadow aspects, ego temptations, and the lower nature, their intervention is perfectly legitimate. If nothing in you responded, if they had no hold upon any part of your nature, they would retire and leave you. Also be careful of making assumptions. The vast majority of entity interferences are very subtle, nuanced, and oftentimes hardly distinguishable from your own childhood trauma, triggers, shadow projections, exile parts, or many other unconscious psychological causes. It is necessary to know thyself and your psyche with psychological self-awareness and be strongly connected to your true self to discern what is what. There's also the danger of rejecting what you need to integrate and vice versa.